Texas Historic Commission,
Oh, okay.
where they want to speak. That's what they.
It's a great picture. Great
Oh,
picture.
thank you.
Good.
Good to see you.
Good to be here.
That's right, in this heat.
Yes.
What?
I said even in this heat.
Oh, yeah.
this evening, just be with her, and I know she doesn't not like to miss these meetings, but we just need to get her well. Father, it's in your name we pray. Amen. All right, citizens communication, Mr. Rowan. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring the council an update on the July 7th meeting of the Board of Directors of the Development District in Central Texas, which is associated with the Central Texas Council of Governments in Belton. You might consider them the area that they represent, and tremendously talented people, and a great resource for the city, and always ahead of the game as far as federal and state grants and resources that are available to us. Some of the topics that were included in the meeting were a broadband plan. I'll come to that, back to that. Texas music-friendly communities, Texas film-friendly communities, the 2022 to 26 comprehensive economic development strategy for our 7-county area, regional broadband initiatives update, federal and state legislative updates pertaining to I just wanted to bring to your attention the broadband presentation. I printed it out, and they're covering broadband from A to Z with a state broadband director giving the presentation. Also, this is a federal, state, and county priority. There's a county broadband office now in Belton. And as we look at broadband, we should take advantage of all of these opportunities to incorporate broadband into the entire city. They're also hosting a small town summit. Some of it's happening this week. And these are for webinar series. These resources are good, available, emergency preparedness, community development, infrastructure, etc. And these are using communities within the district as presenters to provide us with their tools. So I have printed the entire packet and the broadband and the small town summit portion, and also provided to Joseph. And I'd like to just give it to the council to review. It's available on digital format, and you can get on the mailing list for it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. And we received your emails this week also about all that, and have looked it over. And I'm going to try my best to join in on some of those roundtables here in the near future. All right, moving on. Boards, commissions, committees, presentations, proclamations. Number 1, cemetery committee monthly update.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. The cemetery committee did not meet this month. They will meet in August, but that's why they didn't meet again this month. So I'll have an updated report in the following month in August.
Perfect. Thank you. Item 2, Tyner Memorial Library Board monthly update. Jennifer?
Yeah, Amy's not here, so she's kind of keeps things running, but I'll speak on her behalf. It's summer, programming, so there's, snow cones at the library every week and some activities to try and bring more families in. But for June, we had 21 visitors. Yeah, that is good stuff, and that is actually, we're seeing small, very small incremental upticks. But if you look at a community of our size, those small upticks are actually impactful. We're reaching more and more of the community, so we'll meet again next, on Wednesday. That's library board.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Municipal Development District MDD monthly update.
Yes, sir. The MDD board, they did meet, I believe last week. They continued their normal business and discussion opportunities for economic development within the city limits. We'll discuss the fiber component of that later on the agenda. We will go out to advertise for the fifth board member that was approved through their updated bylaws. So once we go out and receive applicants for that, we will place that on the August 8th regular meeting agenda for council to approve an appointment to the board for that fifth new position.
Perfect. Item number 4, Parks and Facilities Committee monthly update.
Yes, sir. We're still waiting for the roof repairs to City Hall and the wastewater treatment facility building out of the treatment plant. Once we get those in, we'll move forward with those repairs. We're waiting on, and I'll touch on this on the department reports, but we're waiting on maybe 1 or 2 other items to shake out or get more clarification before we move forward with the discussion on the City Hall renovation.
And item number 5, receive monthly department reports. City Administrator.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Alrighty. So for the city administrator component, the biggest update to report there, or 2 of them, is we had a CIP meeting with our city engineer a couple of weeks ago. We evaluated quite a few that the engineers will focus on, and they will be billed itemized receipts, basically. So we know what they spend and what they work on per task order, per project. We're going to take that information and have a meeting with the Williamson County folks for the ARPA allocation, the $500,000 that they've allocated for us. We have that meeting next Friday. So we're hoping to have a productive conversation there, meeting related to our CIP projects. The other one is Mayor and I will be attending an LCRA event later this month. And part of that discussion will be related to our PUC administrative order, which is later on the agenda. So I'll provide an additional update at that time, but we are still moving forward with that and hoping to provide another update again, of course, at the August 8th meeting.
Perfect. City Secretary.
Yes, sir. For municipal court, we did have court this month. I got it right here. We collected $3,403 in fines. Of that, $927 was remitted to the state, and $2,477 was kept by the city. We will not have court in August. That's the last month that our municipal court clerk will be out. She should be back in office later this month, if not up to speed on all the happenings since she's been out. So we're planning to have court again. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. We're not going to have court in July. August will be the court date. Yes. Sorry about that. Okay. But that's the court update.
How much speed did she move?
Right.
Moving on, item D, Development Services.
Yes, sir. Okay. So for development services, we had $4,570 of fees collected, 20 commercial, 100 was a refundable demo deposit, and $4,450 was residential. Of that, 570 went to ATS just for this month. That's for the inspections that were scheduled and occurred this month. Let's see here, 14 total permits were issued, 2 commercial, 12 residential. There are 2 permits in review, 1 commercial, 1 residential. ATS completed 9 inspections, and there are 8 additional inspections waiting. On the co-compliance side, we had 19 total violations, 19 that were mailed. Of that, 6 were corrected or now in compliance, and 13 are pending review, meaning the letter that was sent out, we're still waiting for a response before we take additional action. Outside of that, we did 2 emergency abatements, of which they have already been invoiced for those. On the animal control, there were 12 total calls, 5 trips were transported to the owner, and the 2 were invoiced and fined for recurring animal control issues. So our PD and our co-compliance guy have been working great together in collaboration and making sure that these efforts are continued.
Utility building.
Yes, sir. Let's see. We did 724 paper bills, 204 for payment plan households, and it looks like there was just under 200,000, 192,000 in utility billing, with the majority of that residential, 148,000, commercial 34,000, taxes, dumpsters, and the water improvement loan. So moving along through there. Our hottest months are coming up that are going to be billed for electric usage. So July, August, and September are typically the highest billed months of the year. The highest bills of the year, be prepared.
I'll prepare myself.
Yeah.
Public Works.
Yes, sir. Public Works had 81 work orders. They completed 63 of them. 18 are still being worked through. Of that, let's see here. They had 4 connections for taps. They did a number of rereads, fallen or cut down limbs. They did their mowing this month, and they did 13 water leaks and 2 water rereads and 2 water taps. So our guys are staying busy, especially out in the heat.
And police.
Before I touch on police, I'll make sure to cover the electric.
Go for it.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Our electric department had 25 total work orders. They completed this month. Outages defined as something where it was after hours. They got called back out to do it. They also set a number of poles and strung wire over by Arnold Street. So now we have a new branch out that way. As part of our grant application for the FEMA generators that we discussed previously, we had to put together a bit of power outage information. And so I'd like to share that with you. Starting from November of 2020 through basically today, and this is all pulled from the city Facebook page. So this is where we documented the time and date stamps and so forth. We've had 27 different outages, and on average, across that time span, that's about 1 every 3 weeks. So 1 every 21 days, we have a power outage, an authorized power outage. So we've come a long way. Our response time has gone way down. And that's a direct result of the hard work our in-staff lineman crew has been putting in to make sure they respond appropriately to all of these outages. So we greatly appreciate them. All right. On the PD side, they had a total of 73 service calls. 4 were priority 1, 15 priority 2, 37 priority 3, and 17 priority 4. You'll see in front of you, they have the monthly report from the Bell County Communications Office. Feel free to go through that as you need. Of course, on PD, stay busy. As you know, 4th of July was this past weekend, and so we had an extra officer on patrol. I believe we only had 2 complaints that were dealt with very quickly, and citations were issued in both occurrences. So I think we did a really good job in citizen communication to give them alternative fireworks show opportunities and to outline what was permissible and what is not permissible during that weekend. And that was especially significant given our current drought conditions. Of course, this continued, so we'll continue those efforts.
Good deal. Minutes, item number 6, approved minutes from the following meeting, 6/13/2022. Regular meeting, those meetings are in your agenda packet. So we just need a motion. You guys are good with the minutes? Ray Tucson has made an motion. Ray Tucson made a motion to accept the consent agenda as is with a Jesse Luna second. All in favor? Carries 4-0. Okay. No public hearings or ordinances tonight. Moving on. Regular agenda items. Item number 7, review and take any necessary action related to continued utility building lease agreement discussion.
Yes, sir. Mayor, City Council, as you recall, this is a continued discussion for the proposed lease agreement for the utility building across the street here. At the last meeting, we reviewed the draft agreement that we currently have. It was about 80% complete. There were some revisions that were requested on both sides. But the biggest component to come out of our feedback we got from the County Appraisal District. As a result of that, Mayor and I and our Mayor Pro Tem, we sat down and we did a brainstorm, little think tank exercise where we evaluated several different scenarios. One being, what if the city were to issue debt in any incremental amount that the developer was proposing to put into the building? In any debt scenario, we would be liable for interest, and even at very, very favorable interest terms, we would still be out of pocket more than what the developer was proposed. Thought process we had. The other is if we were to self-fund those improvements ourselves through the potential debt schedule that we reviewed. And that was in such an incremental length that before you start pouring more than $10,000 into the building, you're already potentially 5, 6, 7 years down the road. So it'd be very slow progress if we did it ourselves. The third and I guess final exercise that we had was running scenarios for property tax. We developed 2 different scenarios. One was a very conservative area where we're very slow property tax rate increases over a 17-year period, and also smaller incremental increases over appraised value over that period. So we established a bottom line, and then we also did a very aggressive scenario where we valued an aggressive value increase and a aggressive property tax rate increase, a little bit more aggressive in that scenario. So we developed a range of anywhere between, let me see here. Where was it? Anywhere from $200,000 to just under $600,000 in property tax liability over a 17-year period. Again, any projections past 2 or 3 years, 7, 8, 10 years from now. The biggest hurdle to overcome at this point is the concept of a uncapped property tax liability. And what that means is there is no definitive way to get a solid answer as to what the city would potentially be on the hook for in property tax in any given year outside of maybe next year. So with that being said, it's very hard to budget. It's very hard to forecast on what that could be. And as we'll continue to get into our budget talks for next year, there are a laundry list of projects and priorities that we also have to take in consideration when considering any property tax liabilities. So, with that being said, Mayor, I'll kind of turn it over to you.
Yeah, so basically it was kind of, with all that being said, kind of determined on the city standpoint that we as a city, as citizens of Bartlett, do not see us being able to take on the uncapped property tax portion of the building at this time. In other words, if it goes to a private developer for, tax building, so all of a sudden now we're having to pay taxes on it. If the developer doesn't want to pay those taxes, then that leaves nobody but the city to pay the taxes. And the city just cannot take on that obligation at this point. With all the other infrastructure that we have to take care of this in the city, I don't see us having I don't see us being able to take on that obligation. That responsibility is an open-ended, uncapped. We don't know what it is. It could be as much as, if the valuations of that building goes up to $1 million annually for taxes, which we all know Jennifer does great work, and we see that building could be worth $1 million in the very near future if she did all the work. So the city just cannot, at this point, think about taking on that obligation of the uncapped property tax. If the developer, Ms. Jennifer, would want to take those on herself, then we can continue talks. But at this point, it's just not feasible for the city, and I don't know if it's even. That's why we wanted to put an update on here. I kind of put it on pause until we, either proceed or not proceed from developers. You don't have to give us that answer tonight. We'll get this what we want. So that's just where we currently sit with it. At this point, the city cannot afford to take on the tax obligation of the building. So, yes,
Especially if it's open-ended.
yes.
Isn't the city already on tap for whatever the property tax is?
It's an untaxed building right now because it's a city property. So the city is not taxed on it.
Okay.
But if it goes to a private developer, then it automatically flips. And we've tackled, Joseph spent hours on the phone with Williamson County Appraisal District trying to get where it doesn't flip. And basically, I think he's tried every possible.
Make Jennifer a city employee.
She doesn't want that.
Yes, they get paid it.
If the city finds a way to rehabilitate the building, say similar to those long-term development loans that were being offered to the state a few months ago, it would still function as some utility office space. It can still function as a historic a feature that was owned by the city,
Yes, sir.
and possibly we would then only incur the rehabilitation cost, which could be financed for 20 to 30 years at reasonable rates.
Yes,
And
sir.
never have any taxes.
I follow what you're saying. Joseph and I, we crunched a bunch of numbers with it. We even did some talking to some other folks, and I feel like the citizens would want us to fix the infrastructure in the city, and the roads in the city, the drainage in the city, the water in the city. The electric in the city. I just feel like it's on the list. Don't get me wrong. It is on the list of things that we want to see done, but it's not at the top of the list. We've got a whole bunch of infrastructure projects that we really need to concentrate on. We've got tons of grant applications out right now. And so with grant applications come, we don't want to go grant funded broke, just trying to get free money. As a city, we have to, there's a whole lot of different steps. yes, we can walk and chew bubble gum at the same time here in the city of Bartlett, but you've got to be careful on taking on too much of an obligations, too much financial obligations, to where all of a sudden then you don't have money to do anything that you're approved for because you don't have the money for the match. So out there, we applied for, and we've been lucky to get a few, but infrastructure grants, rehabilitation grants and stuff like that, for properties, you're looking at like a 50-50 match on those. And I mean, yeah, you can go for a long-term loan, but then you're tying up debt, and then then there goes more money out the door. We're trying to get free money. We're trying to make the citizens of Bartlett's tax dollars and utility dollars go the furthest we possibly can by applying for grants and getting the grants approved. Therefore, if we can get a $1 million grant and it's a 70-30 grant, 300,000 to get $1 million worth of work, they're putting in 700,000. So we're just trying to stretch that almighty dollar. We love the idea of renovating the building. We love it, love it, love it. I don't think it's completely dead just yet. I know there's other people out there talking about it, other options on the table. But at this point, I just don't feel like the city can take on that obligation. I mean, maybe once we get through budget season, if we can find like an extra bucket of gold in there somewhere, highly doubtful. But if we possibly end of the budget season, unless Miss Jennifer wants to come to us next week or whenever and continue talks on it somehow, some way. So that's just where we kind of sit at it. Any questions?
Unless some rich person from Bartlett donates.
Any other comments, questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This may have happened previous to me, so I just don't come to pay for some of this stuff that you need to have done. It's a twofold question.
Put up the vote.
Yeah, anytime the city wants to sell a property now,
Right.
it has to be a unanimous 5-0 pass through the council.
And I don't even know if it's for sale.
I mean, I don't think we can just like put a for sale sign on the front door, but it has to go.
I don't know how.
Yeah, it's like a bid process, isn't it?
Growth, real estate, is at a premium right now. And aside from the actual physical built structure, the real value on that is the land itself. Because at some point, our city facilities are going to have to expand, and whatever existing real property we don't have, we're going to have to buy at some point. And so again, that's several years down the road. But when you consider how fast these property values are going up around, for any additional land increase, land purchases here in the relative near future. So we'll want to keep as much real property that we currently have right now. Mr. Dean has a question.
Another option might be if you had the people that were interested in, I don't know, collective interest in, is to have a nonprofit organization, nonprofit corporation, take it in a caretaker status, and they apply for the grants and loans, and we could, like, to be able to thousands of dollars into the old schools under the December type program, and we continue to do so. And it's just a matter of having, the talent to obtain the grants and resources. And that way it would stay, it would be improved on a gradual basis. It would stay within the city ownership and control. Maybe just, for historic preservation is all this third party would be. And maybe even find ways to bring tourism attractions and minor office usage. So just another way of laundry listing your options.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your comment. Any other comments on this one? So basically, we just given an update, and you guys are welcome to tell me to shut up and we talk or whatever. I mean,
But it's still on the table.
it could be. I mean, financially, it's had. So, any comment? We'll move on from item 7, no action. Item number 7, receive update on fiber internet project, expanding broadband internet in downtown Charlotte.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Let's see.
That's this trusty little map of y'all's.
For the audience as well, if you'd like to see it. An update on the fiber project. We had another meeting with the Bartlett Electric Co-op and their staff. They are still very excited about this project and they want to make it work. We're going to provide them an update this week. We have outlined the proposed path for the fiber network, and that's what you see here on the projector. Thank you, sir. Where's my laser can? Is left just behind housing, and that's where this first CP stands for current pole number 1. So each red dot is where a current pole resides, and then there's a line that connects all of them. What our next step that we're going to complete this week is to have a new pole path outlined. It's going to follow a similar path, but our goal is to reduce the number of poles needed to expand fiber from this starting point down to the downtown region. One big key factor here is the possibility during our meeting, and you may want to expand on this, on what he said they're capable of expanding it from a pole, what that radius is from one given pole. But now you're reaching potentially the library. Here's the library over here from this pole, and all of these houses, these neighborhoods as you go downtown. There's, I believe that's Red and White right there, post office. So all of these places are now getting access to fiber internet. And it's the first big brand. Yes, sir, Bartlett Electric Co-op. Are there any questions related to the fiber project or anything related to it?
That's the fork down at the bottom there.
Yes, sir, this is Clark Street right there. Yes, sir.
So basically, it cuts through the middle of housing, goes down Evie Street to about Red and White, kind of jots over to an alley.
Yeah.
Behind these these residences.
Still a mile away.
And then and behind the buildings, they can run it without any more poles.
So there's an existing pole?
No.
Hits the buildings and then, I don't know how they do it.
The poles are like minimum 25 foot, 50 foot high. Poles we're going to replace some to get it to the.
What are shorter?
So CP 19, CP 18, and CP 17 are all brand new poles. They're already there from the storm damage. And then some of those other CPs, I think like 11 might be new. There's a few other new ones. So we're trying to get it down to lower pole count. And the span you can go with the fiber is a lot further than what these poles are currently sitting at. So.
Are they planning to expand to the west side and the east side?
So they do have a line that comes in down Constable Road out towards, it goes out towards, so it runs right by the sewer plant. There'd be an additional cost to that to get it on the east side of town. And once they got up, to the school area and stuff like that, they could go around that neighborhood pretty easily. On this side of town, on this side of the tracks, they've got a line that runs underground right here in between City Hall and Fire Department. And it comes through down at the end of Emma Street, right by the trophy shop. And goes all the way through your downtown street underground, and they got vaults every other street corner already. And then it comes back aerial, and it goes out towards Wahlberg. And then it catches all that all the way out to Killeen and back. And then, so the city hall is actually on the Bartlett Fiber. It's been on there for about a year now, and we've had really good luck with it. I mean, it's fairly quick.
Pretty critical, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's really nice. So I think there's one or two structures in town that have it. Yes, sir.
Are all the current, domestic poles city electric?
All those would be city of Bartlett poles.
Okay, when you replace them, will they be still owned by the city?
Yes, sir.
And
Yes.
they'll be dual use for city power and fiber optic?
Yes, sir. And then I think the co-op is waiting for us to work out a pole attachment agreement. Therefore, they would have to lease it, pay the city, X amount of dollars per year to be attached to that pole. So just like we have to pay them $10 a year per pole that we're attached to for our electric. So that's part of the still lingering info. Yeah.
Okay, the one thing you are replacing with the 50-foot poles, who's paying for that?
That's the MDD dollars, so they have already earmarked up to 25,000, yes, sir. Up to $25,000 for basically 25 poles. A 50-foot pole is about $1,000, just under that. So that's why we mapped out the existing poles. We got a count of what's currently there, and that's why our next step is to parse that down in the most efficient manner to ideally come in under budget, because we're viewing this the first guinea pig, so to speak. So the success of this has the potential to cause a ripple effect for additional expansion at some point in the future.
It's a joint project between the city of Bartlett, the Bartlett LDD, and really Bartlett Co-op, really. City of Bartlett, obviously, we're putting up a small portion of money. I think, was it $3,500?
$3,500 and in kind.
And then in kind, which would be all of our manpower installing the new poles, which benefits the city too, because where the current poles are, now we're putting 20 brand new poles in, and we'll be eventually making that transfer over, getting 20 brand new poles also on our city line. So we've got a lot of aging poles in town that are in very bad,
Oh,
aging, very bad shape. So
I think it's really good to see the MDDs
Yeah.
actually
yeah. I was
providing
gonna say
value
that.
now. And contributing to one much more valuable, so this is a great example of that. It's good to see it.
I like it. I like this route a lot better than the first route we looked at, because this catches, I mean, basically from the railroad tracks all the way up to Dalton Street, which is 95, basically from housing all the way down to the backside of your downtown, which I guess would be Peach Street. Is that correct? So housing to Peach Street, railroad tracks to 95. That's a pretty awesome stretch. Catches 90, maybe 75. Well, business opportunity.
Well, it will bring more business.
It will bring
there,
more.
So,
It will.
which is part of what the MDD should be
Exactly.
supporting, so
Exactly.
it's good to see it.
So this brings, the MDD, they're funded by sales tax dollars, sales tax revenue. You get more businesses in town, sales tax revenue goes up, MDD revenue goes up. Win-win. I mean, so citizens win, you get businesses in town, hopefully a restaurant, something like that. Who knows? Let's, build off of it. I think it's great. It's good. Any other questions?
In addition to Jim's statement, it's really nice that the two groups are working together.
It is.
Unlike the past,
Mhm.
they thought it was a personal chicken catch.
And even the BEC, it's been very encouraging to have the BEC sit at the table with us again. So we definitely want to do everything we can to continue to foster positive relationships with our area stakeholders.
Any word on if the whole city's gonna get it one day, or how long?
There's like Mr. Dean talked about broadband opportunities out there for companies to apply for and bring, like if Mr. Falcon, Mr. Taylor wanted to apply for it, or if, I know ZocNet's been doing some fiber upgrades in town. I know Falcon's talked about it. I've heard AT&T is supposed to be doing a fiber upgrade in town. So there's opportunities out there for these private industries to apply for these grants to bring broadband into rural communities at a lot, where it's not. And Don't we have enough utilities we have to worry about?
Yep. I completely agree.
I mean,
The
Small
price
bites.
is supposed to bother
Small
me, but it
bites.
doesn't, I'd rather have quality.
Yeah.
So, my daughter-in-law works at home, but she's making that drive to Georgetown now, because it sucks.
There are a few municipalities in the state that do own and operate their own municipal broadband, but it's a very small number. But what you're seeing statewide for capital or the development agreement itself, and then the third private party, they provide the actual fiber itself. And so that,
And it may bring other companies.
yes, right. The more fiber companies are in town, you increase market competition, and that helps the individual consumer. Yes, sir.
all right. Any other questions on that? Another no action item. So, as items to discuss, review, and take any necessary action related to approving city attorney to draft revisions to the current personnel manual to include potential emergency callback pay, public salary or safety hazard pay, and sick and vacation leave provisions.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. We'll take one of those each at a time. The emergency callback pay provision, given that the city, to my knowledge, or at least in the current rendition of the personnel manual, which is last revised, emergency callback pay provision within our current personnel manual. Basically what that means, and it was a draft in the packet, when our line crew goes home for the day and we get an emergency outage that we talked about just a few minutes ago, that is where they come back in, assess the issue, fix the issue, and then go back home. Well, in the calculation of overtime, and this is FLSA standard, it equates to productive hours versus non-productive hours. So if leave and vacation leave do not count as productive hours worked, so they could be called back and not receive overtime for that. And from what our lineman crew has voiced to us as one of their concerns, and we do encourage open door policy here with the city. That way we know what the issues are, we know what to focus on. Mayor and I, we did some industry research. We spoke to individuals within not just the automatic time and a half at a minimum 2 hour for any emergency callbacks. And that's very, very specific. That is not, you work through lunch. That is not, you stay past 5 o'clock. That is emergency situations, and it's emergency callback pay. And if you recall that the exact language in the packet is the exact language in our current lineman's employment contract, and it's the exact same provision. So what he is currently hourly. Yes,
Oh,
right there.
that's different.
Yes, it's hourly. Mhm. So that's the emergency callback pay provision. We would like the city attorney and their HR specialist to draft that language to ensure that we're following all proper employment laws. The next one is the public safety hazard pay. That's a COVID provision. Again, they'll draft that language up for us, and we'll update our personnel manual accordingly. And the sick and vacation leave provisions, this is where we're starting to get into a recruitment and retention provision. You look at our area cities and look at their sick and vacation leave policies and their other compensation package, where you look at retirement benefits, be it a 1.5 to 1 match or 2 to 1 match, which 2 to 1 is standard, and we have 1.5 to 1, so we're already at a disadvantage there. But not to get off topic, the sick and vacation leave provisions is basically a discussion. Do we want to continue with separate vacation and sick leave, or do we want to transition to a PTO style leave, vacation leave for our longer tenured employees? So right now, you only get 1 week of vacation for your first 5 years of employment with the city. That's a pretty long time. I think 2 weeks, again, is pretty standard, and that could be made available for those that stick with us for 2 years or longer, from 2 to 5 years, and then we scale it up from that
So
point.
sick time just accrue at this point?
Yes, sir. Yep. Sick and vacation, we both accrue. Yes, sir.
You only get a week.
The sick time expired yearly, or?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm sure it does. Most personnel manuals have provisions where you cap, what you can carry over.
So it's possible to carry over.
To an extent.
To an extent,
Yes,
that's
sir.
one thing.
Yes, sir. So this agenda item is just to get council approval to start working with the city attorney to for sure draft an emergency callback pay provision. And if council permits, we will not only discuss it with the city attorney, but we will do a staff survey of the vacation sick leave, if they prefer PTO, or if they prefer the designated sick and vacation leave, and also do a benchmark assessment of what our area cities offer to ensure that we're competitive with the area labor pool, to make sure we attract the type of candidate that's going to help the city grow.
I would think the PTO would be the way to go with it, put a cap on how much they can carry over per year.
Absolutely.
A lot easier to keep up with, I think.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Nobody ever talks about the 100% payment of medical.
Oh, yeah. That's a huge selling point.
Yes.
It's funny you mentioned that. It kind of blows my mind when we talk about it. But last year we had our first, the open enrollment period last year, and our employees told me that was the first time they had ever done that. Time they fully understood the scope of their benefits and what that meant. Basically equated to a paycheck. It's excellent. Not just the health benefits, but the retirement. For every day, they have a mandatory 7% contribution rate, and the city contributes time and a half to that 7%. And again, actually, standard in local government is 2-to-1 match. So other local governments will contribute 2 times what the employee does for their retirement. It's a very, very generous package. So where the salary and hourly pay, they more than enough to make up for it in terms of health and retirement. Yes, sir.
When did they retire?
That's right.
Any other comments on this, or do we need a motion?
Does it need an approval or just?
We'll need a motion for council to approve either myself and or mayor to start discussions with the city attorney and with city staff to start drafting these provisions and to do the groundwork for the sick and vacation leave policies.
I'll make that motion to move forward with that. Joseph, if you want to make that happen.
Mr. Weaver has a motion on the table. Second. So Dylan, second, sir.
Bit of checklist.
So is there something that needs to be timing wise needs to be done by
Year, it starts October 1, and that's certainly a feasible timeline. We still have the August regular meeting, the September regular meeting to enact this. Our health benefits renew at the start of the fiscal year, October 1, so it would be a very clean transition to start that October 1. Yes, sir.
It's not staggered.
It's not staggered, no, sir. So I'll make a note here to follow up at the next council meeting with an update on this item.
That's when we decide, like, guys coming up on Thanksgiving. They have to be at work.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we've run into that scenario several times. I mean, 4th of July holiday, and quite a few times they've been called back. So.
Mm-hmm. Now, to add to that, I know that we've had some, maybe it's further down in the agenda here about who's actually on call and how those calls are dealt with after hours. Is that, I mean, if we have an electrical outage, say if Derek's the one that's on call, then he has to receive the call, but he also has to make a decision to call in the electrical.
Yes, sir. Right now we have basically one on-call phone, one on-call number that's currently passed around and rotated through our water and wastewater department. Given that is where we have a higher number of work orders after hours calls. They're our first line of defense, basically. So if we get flickering lights, majority of our public works guys live in town, so they have no problem driving on site, doing a quick assessment, and then Mayor Pro Tem, as you mentioned, if they deem it necessary, they will call our electric guys in that department or lineman to troubleshoot it at that point and determine if he needs to come in.
Just a thought would be something we might want to consider in the future, maybe bringing on an answering service at night that can screen that call for us.
So
Yeah, would route that to where it needed to go without having to involving multiple people?
Possibility, yes, sir, absolutely.
Thank you for that, Kyle.
Our lineman was concerned that, anytime the lights flicker, we'll get a call, same thing.
Well, they would have the opportunity to call and say, we have a potential outage, 1507 Park Street, so they can ask their questions without,
Right,
at least it would go to the right hand instead of,
a general number.
yeah.
We did, when we had conversation the other day, we did talk about like a, maybe a 5-item checklist. Whenever the caller calls in, then this guy can ask them or they can even go to their house and ask them the 5 questions. How do you check your main breaker? How do you, 5 different items. If it's breaker tripping on the house. Or
Except when you hear boom, it's
gunshots.
The squirrel.
a squirrel.
A lot of gunshots.
Yeah.
No, good question. I do, probably not out of talk about this, but our on-call phone, we do need to limit that to live in the city. We don't need a guy from Temple on call, because all he's doing is picking up and calling some of the guys in the city, and they're doing the job for him.
Yeah.
And now we're paying 2 different people rather than 1. So, just a thought.
No, we're addressing that, we will address that, so. We do have a motion on the table.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion carries 4-0. Thanks for the lights. Hook me up.
Me too.
Fiscal year 2022.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. This is just an extension of the previous agenda item. Basically, while we work with the city attorney to draft these revisions, they're not in effect until city council approves those revisions. So in the meantime, this would be for council to approve temporarily the emergency callback pay provision as presented in the agenda packet, again, which is the exact same language in our lineman's employment contract. That way we ensure that they receive this benefit while we work on the long-term implementation of that in our personnel manual.
Because basically you're gonna go. You did.
Yes, well, assuming that our electric department is getting compensated for those emergency callbacks.
So this was just a, calls, a little incentive to those guys, a little thing doing that, because our response here in the department reports have gone from, y'all remember back in the days when we used to call like San Antonio or Brenham or wherever, Seguin, where, we'd be like 4 to 6 hours electricity while we're just waiting for stuff used from the citizen. My lights are so lights out to lights on. I mean, here lately we've gotten down to less than an hour. That's like, for the supervisor.
And to have that.
He does have the emergency callback in his contract. Now, his 2 helpers underneath, the lineman and the lineman and the groundman, they do not have that. But we need them to respond with him whenever we have power outage.
It's a safety issue.
Yes, sir.
Temporary till he get it permanent after.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd make that motion and make that.
Philip Weaver's made that motion. Yes, he has seconded.
And that's just to the end of the year, the fiscal year, correct?
Yes, sir. That is through the end of September. Yes, sir.
So at least they know we're serious.
All in favor?
Yes.
Carries 4-0.
Who's the second?
Jesse. That will show them some support, guys, that we do appreciate what they do for us in the city. I know the citizens appreciate it. We're learning. That's something we got to sit down with them last week and talk to them about. Is like
Something else to just real quick
we're
to
building
add to
this
that.
part.
I think with that also comes a degree of responsibility and accountability that needs to go with. The guys need to understand that.
We did have a great conversation last week individually with every member of the department, and we I think we're all on a clear level playing field now. We're starting over from we're all bygones are gone, and we're starting over fresh. Everybody's happy. we're all a team again. We're moving on.
But you know what, no matter how good the employees are, understanding,
Yeah, absolutely. It's unfortunate. It is. So, it is frustrating. So, any other? So that passed 4-0. Item number 11, discuss, review, and take any necessary action related to resolution 2022-07-11-11 for the Texas Division of Emergency Management Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, DR 4.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. This is a resolution that is included in the packet. It is basically, this is for that FEMA generator grant that we've been working on with the city engineer and with Langford Grant Administration. This resolution is to appoint the mayor as the chief executive officer, which he is by Texas Local Government Code anyhow, an authorized representative to act in all matters in connection with the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Project and committing the city to provide matching funds to secure and complete the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant. So if you recall, this is a 90-10 grant, basically 90% of it is the grant applications that we've formulated so far, based off of feedback from our grant administrator. They recommended to have 2 separate applications for the same grant project, basically same grant application program, excuse me, but one with generators for the main well, small well, and the volunteer fire department, and the second application for generators for the wastewater treatment plant lift station and the EV Street list application, which is not likely to get funded in its entirety. So this is just the next step, the next formality, if you will, in the application process. Any questions or concerns related to this resolution?
So we need a motion to move forward.
Make a motion to approve the resolution as presented. Yes, sir.
Make a motion.
Motion. Did you make a
No,
motion?
yes.
Weaver has made another motion on this. And Ray Uton has seconded that. All in favor? 4-0. Moving on, item number 12, discuss, review, take any necessary action related to the resolution 2022-07-11-12, authorizing execution of an advanced funding agreement with TxDOT for the Safe Routes to School project.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, as you recall, the Safe Routes to School project, that is the $835,000 approximate TxDOT grant to create and expand the sidewalk from our city school to essentially downtown, which ends, I believe, right at the post office. That is 100% grant funded. There is no city match as a part of that, which is a huge, huge opportunity for us. All this resolution is to reaffirm the city's commitment to the project, and again, just another one of those formalities as part of the turning it into reality, into construction.
In case you're wondering, the map, door to school, where the Bulldog logo is.
the high school,
I think that's the middle school where the Bulldog is on the front. All the way straight down Professor Powell across 95, all the way to E Street, and then turns south and heads and connects to the post office. 6 foot wide sidewalk, is it?
Put a traffic light or something there at 95?
It should, yes, sir. The only question is what that looks like. Is it just stripe paint, or is it an actual flashing, hit the button? I'd imagine at that price point, it'd be flashing lights, something pretty safe, but we won't know definitively until we get the design documents back from TxDOT, and we can take colors for it.
We don't have any input as far as requesting, say, an actual stop sign or stop light there. Or?
We could. Usually you have a pre-con meeting or prior to that development. Just need a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
I'll do the motion.
Gail Jones made a motion to approve that.
Second.
Ray Uton, second.
Senior citizen.
All in favor? Carries 4-0. He's double sided there, buddy. We can fix that.
Yeah.
Item number 13, discuss with you and take any necessary action related to appointing vacant Hanger Memorial Library Board position.
In the packet, I included the current Tyner Memorial Library Board of Trustees members. We have 5 trustee positions, 4 of which are occupied. The 5th is vacant. The vacancy is for a 3-year term, which would be for the remainder of this fiscal year, 1st of 2024. At this time, we've only received 1 new application for the library board, and that is from Ms. Susan Weaver. Council, you can either approve that appointment, or we can table this item for the next regular meeting, at which time we'll advertise and bring back hopefully additional candidates for the, I've started to refer to it as the TML board, Tyner Memorial Library Board, TML board, in addition to, which would be a separate agenda item in August.
I'll add that she's already volunteering and adding great value to the library, so I'm currently a board member of the library, and her contributions are significant.
You spoke with your,
Susan Weaver, is that vacancy?
you spoke with your spouse, and she's asked us to see if we can get more applicants.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
It's been requested by the applicant, Ms. Susan, just in the spirit of fairness and openness, to solicit for additional applications. And then at that point, council can make the appointment at the next regular meeting. So it sounds like the preferred action at this time is to table this item until the next regular meeting. That is what I've heard. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
So we're gonna put out a notice for applicants for the MDD board as well. So. Item 13 has been tabled. Item 14, discuss, review, and take any necessary action to approving mayor, city administrator, and city attorney to draft extended food truck permit guidelines and procedures.
Yes, sir. So basically, what this is for council to approve the folks in the agenda language to work together to develop an extended food truck permit, which is basically a year-long food truck permit. A good example of this is you have a subbed out area on property, number of food trucks. So the question is to get the food truck permit for the spot and have the food trucks be interchanged to provide variety or to accommodate other food truck schedules, what have you. That's advantageous for a number of reasons. One is it's a great stepping stone to a brick and mortar, whereas a brick and mortar can't move and pick up. And so they're completely reliant on foot traffic generated just in Bartlett, which, as we know, food trucks don't necessarily have that issue. You know, they can pick up and move to any other location in a rotation. So that makes Bartlett a destination for food trucks, right? And that provides food to our citizens and our residents on a regular basis. So the conditions of the extended food truck permit, we would want to ensure there are certain things met, like for any food truck that occupies that spot, a grease trap for one, a fire suppression system within that unit if necessary. and, health certification, and any other number of items that council deems necessary or preferred in that permit application.
Aren't there requirements similar to that when you go get a license for one of those things from the state?
Pretty much, I imagine, it's a process,
Fire suppression, they won't pass you for them.
Mhm.
No, it is if you're licensed.
Have you seen the one in jail?
Yes.
That's it?
From a neighboring city that is really good. And I believe we sent that along to our city attorney. We're just waiting to get back the actual draft for the city of Parkland. So unfortunately, we didn't get that back in time tonight for the agenda, but it's been sent to the attorney and he's working on it. So, right?
We got it. Now they have the green light. Like we're talking about rip off and duplicate, right? We have the base template for the language and the guidelines and the outlines. Now this is going to green light and approve the city attorney to actually spend the staff time in revising it specific to the city of Bartlett's needs and preferences.
I think as long as the criteria is there, that, it tells us exactly what a food truck needs to have, it doesn't have, it's been approved, not approved, whatever, then I would say that we could move forward with that.
We're in order to set up a food truck. One is the food handler certification, the health department inspection,
I think there's a.
tax ID number,
Fire suppression?
License.
driver's license, menu, like a copy of the menu. This whole, it's like a checklist that Rose
So
provides them.
would we need to set a water meter for that so that they would actually have access to that, and how would that be billed?
Well, I think this is more like entitled for like food trailer, which is more forward.
Well, I think that's a question. It could be for a food trailer park, or it could be for any one individual spot. It could address both of those scenarios, or it could just address one of those scenarios. Just kind of depends.
But they usually have like 100-gallon water source in their trucks.
If they have available water, I would think they would rather connect.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
them want to, like the granary in Gerald, they provide water, electric, and then the gray water discharge, I believe.
But isn't it only
And that's
that one
included in
person?
the permit.
So patients are going to be on private property. So this isn't like, so there's going to be a meter if there's water involved, and if there's electricity involved where they're not running off generator, there's going to be a meter or a water meter in place
For that. Okay,
for that property.
That was
I
my
mean,
question.
the only thing is, they would really have to pass city, at that time would be grease trap, installation, making sure that we're trapping the grease before it goes down to our sewer pipes. So that's in the draft wording, I guess. My boy goes. Left.
Yeah, time.
What was the first thing you said a minute ago? What, menu? You got to show menu?
Yeah, there's like like if somebody were to want to put a food truck out front and they wanted a peddler's permit, a food truck permit, they come into City Hall and Rose has a packet that she gives the business owner or whoever's putting it in, and they have to provide driver's license,
Insurance?
I guess tax ID number, so they gotta have a registered tax ID number. They've gotta have a food handler certification. They've gotta have health inspection passed on their trailer. A copy of their menu, so we know what they're serving.
I don't think menu
Menu's kind of a,
The county requests
Because
that too.
one
Like, it's
day,
the same thing
she
as
may
the
sell
county requests.
tacos and he might wind up selling something else. So
I don't know, it's
The
and
way
I'm
I
sure,
understood it from the county is that one of them might be interested in serving on your submission to the
it's probably to make sure that, there's no alcohol being served or something like that, and stuff like that, or,
hash brownies and
Oh, I
stuff
probably
like that. I just
have
wanna
that.
make sure that you're
Yeah.
serving things that are legit.
Yeah, so. It's kind of a requirement that, I'm sure we ripped that off from the county at one point. And now, this is what we ask.
Yeah, so one of the
Our
random
Our
rules is like,
ATS or somebody.
like I have a cedar lumber yardy looking thing is the thing that goes wood that you serve to somebody else because it absorbs, and so it has like all these regulations that you have to say you won't do that, and and what are you serving? Is it prepackaged? Because if it's prepackaged, then you can put it up there, right? But if you're like, put a piece of your barbecue meat on there, you can't do it. So they want to know what you're serving out that window. And does it need that second step of regulations and so on?
So that means I can't sell watermelon popcorn. Oh, get a big old grease, put the pot pan, like a disco, grease it, put the watermelon in it, turn it in, put the popcorn.
Sounds delicious.
Jesse,
I'll make some next time.
Jesse, you gonna put your barbecue, you gonna put a barbecue truck with them?
I'm looking at buying a friend of mine that just passed, wants to get with his wife, he's still selling. Passed some cancer a couple of weeks ago.
We need a motion to allow myself and Joseph to converse with city attorney to draft an extended food truck permit guidelines. Or we don't need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Philip has made a motion.
I'll say,
Philip has made a motion with a raised second. All in favor?
that would be really nice, you know?
It would be really nice to have food barber. I agree. Item number 15, discuss, review, take any necessary action related to appointing mayor, city administrator, and city engineer to draft and submit Texas Water Development Board Asset Management Program for Small Systems grant application. Joseph's got the info on this one. This is a good one too.
Thank you, Mayor. As included in the packet, it was sort of a promotional flyer. It's the Asset Management Program for Small Systems, AMPSS. This is a grant program. This is a 100% grant program. It's to assist small water and wastewater systems by creating a comprehensive plan for managing the systems in a financially and technically stable manner. Systems participating in this program make sure the pre-qualified contracts you work with or create an asset management plan, operations, maintenance, and compliance manuals, and other management tools. I mean, that is super critical. We're talking standard operating procedures. Asset management is a huge deal. That would be a huge component of so all kinds of benefits related to that. There is no financial match required for the systems, but we will be required to contribute at least 80 hours of staff time towards the project. This project will help systems thoroughly inventory their assets, determine the condition and criticality of each asset, plan for short, medium, and long-term capital improvement projects, ensure adequate maintenance is planned and conducted, and prepare the system for accessing the state revolving fund programs. Together, these tools and information will help the system prepare for the future, training staff, the community, and citizens. So through that whole paragraph, we've got a couple of keywords in there, CIP, of course, and also the state revolving fund programs. If you recall, we currently have an application into the Texas Water Development Board, same entity, for the Clean Water and Drinking Water State Revolving Fund program. That's where we talked about a potential 70% loan forgiveness program, or a 65% loan forgiveness for the water. So having this as a precursor, having the asset management plan as a precursor for those state revolving fund opportunities. So, as I mentioned, no financial match, it's just staff time match and in-kind contribution for this program. The deadline for submission is July 21st, so a few days from now, but our city engineer is well versed in these, so they can move pretty quickly if approved tonight.
I'll make the motion.
And this, other stuff the other day when we had a water outage in town, and that was because we were cleaning a major water repair over here, and we're also doing a inspection on our ground storage tank. Philip, Joseph, and I sat in there for upwards of an hour looking at our system, and I think this right here, what we did the other night and looking at that system would fall underneath this, because it almost looks like if we put in one valve, then we have a redundant water system. In other words, when we want to shut down one tap, we close a valve, open up another valve, and then you operate the city off the other water tower.
Yeah.
Rather than go completely dry in the city.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at this, and we're going to take this to our engineer, hopefully in the next week or two, and take him over here and have some really hard discussions with him, because if it's that simple, I mean, this can be done extremely easily. I mean, we're talking big valve, but compared to 8 hours or 12 hours, it is a game.
Kind of like a backup system.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it is
And
yeah.
it really doesn't appear to be that difficult of a project. I mean, there's gonna be some cost involved in it, but you can build complete redundancy in your water systems to where what we had the other day, we wouldn't have again. Because you can shut one system down, operate off of this one, or turn this one on and turn that one off. I mean, you'd have complete redundancy with that, and it would be huge for the whole city.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic.
And this is concerning in the prison tower over on the west side of town. Basically, right now, if we were to put a valve in place, I believe between the Jackson Tower and the booster pumps, then now that would directly feed the prison tower. And as Mayor Pro Tem and Mayor mentioned, when it comes time to do the mandatory maintenance to our ground storage tank and to the elevated tower, or excuse me, the elevated storage tank, we don't have to shut off water to the water. We're still a small enough system that's the redundancy component of it. So like,
Ellen Jackson.
yes, sir. And so the valve is a reference to an isolation valve. It's just something you turn to cut off the water. And that's going to be a really, really critical conversation. Case in point is we're going to have to replace a significant component to our elevated storage tank on Jackson Street. And that's going to require a complete shutdown of the tower for an extended period of time. So to have a redundant system in place, I don't know how helpful that will be for when we have to do that repair, but talking about future.
So we just need the motion to allow Joseph and myself. Probably distracted. To work with the Water Development Board. You made a motion?
Yes, sir.
Ray Newsom's made that motion.
One second. Just,
Who got it? Ray has motion and Jesse has seconded. All in favor? 4-0.
The old days, they would never pass anything, but we would pass.
Item 16, discuss with you and take any necessary action related to approving mayor, city administrator, and city engineer to draft and submit a Lower Colorado River Authority Community Development Partnership Program grant application.
Sir. Thank you, Mayor. This was the last document in your agenda packet. That is the Community Development Partnership Program. LCRA, if you recall, is our wholesale energy provider. We'll call they're granted up to $50,000. What we're looking to do here, and a quick caveat to this is, the only projects eligible within the city are the Williamson County side of the city. Fortunately, Bell County is not considered a service area to LCRA, therefore not eligible for this grant program. So any grant application will have to be on the Williamson County side of the city. When I spoke, they basically came to mind 3 main project scopes that were the most successful. 1 being parks projects, 2 being emergency power projects, your generators, which we're already covering through FEMA, and volunteer fire department applications. So our focus for the city would be the parks project. Now, that begs the question, and kind of a shocking realization when you think about it, we don't have any city parks on Woodson County side of the city. You've got the city pool on Bell County, and you've got the Becky Caldwell Field over on the west side of Bell County, of the city limits in Bell County. So we would have to be a little creative with this. Now, there is park space within the Woodson County side of the city, and that would be the Mount Ararat Park, and also I think it's the Casa de Dios soccer field, if I'm not mistaken. It's across from the Evie Street lift station, but I'll need to look into that one first. But both parks that came to mind and would be eligible for this grant project. One last detail is any project scope $5,000 or below is no grant match. Anything from $5,000 and above up to that $50,000 is a 20% city match to that funding.
Would that be city-owned park?
That's something that I'll have to ask directly to the grant coordinator. That's what I mentioned, that we'll have to be creative. But if we were able to, that would be the route we would go. It'd have to be that way.
Years ago, they bought part of that park over there at that church over here.
Mhm.
When they put in that new sewer septic thing, they bought, I don't know how many acres of it. That's not all there.
Over by the Evie Street lift station by 95?
Right over there near the church. You know, they bought, Johnny, what the heck's his name? Anyway, you know where the church parking is? I mean, the park right there next to the church? Well, the city bought part of it, add or repair the pump over there.
The
8-10 years ago.
Evie Street lift station.
Is that what it's called? Where you go to his house?
Yeah, it says Evie Street. So you have
City
the
owns
city
part
owns
of
a
it.
very, like a postage stamp size piece of property directly across the street from the current Evie Street lift station. Yeah, that's
It is.
But these are just some of the projects that they have. Now, if we do get awarded a project, then you have to sit out for 2 years before you apply for another project. That's the only downside. We have until July 31st to turn in an application. The first until January 1st. And so
We have no place to apply one right now, do
it's either we pick something and apply for it, or we put something together for next year and apply for it next year. You guys.
Do we have no locations in Williamson County, except for the private one?
Now, if Joseph could reach out to,
Named Sheila.
her name's Sheila, he spoke with her today, and I was on another line. And, then we could get with Mount Ararat and see about doing a project for those guys. Like, you see this playground equipment, this is where they put it in at some other city. And, they do like library stuff, they do ball field stuff. Our ball fields are in Williamson County, our libraries in Williamson County, our parks in Williamson County.
In Bell County.
I'm sorry, Bell County. All those are in Bell County. Our fire department's in Bell County. It's like everything that we would qualify for, parks, fire department, this, that, everything. It's all across the street.
But wasn't the ball field at Texas Parks and Wildlife?
Yes, but this is a LCRA grant, which is completely different. And
But it only covers Williamson.
we were looking at like an LED lighting upgrade for the ball fields. You pick those up and move them. Yes, sir.
Just for the record, and I was involved in the Ararat Park fundraising effort. Get a long way. On a grant, to, and I was saying that was make that point. As a matter of
Does this have to be on city property?
That's what we need to find out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's one of the questions we want to call back and find out.
We'll put it right next to your house where Market was going to do.
Well, that other half acre there,
You want to park in your backyard?
right now we have to mow it.
You want to dedicate park
You
lane?
know that, water tank on Jackson Street, the jail one? Who owns that land? Because we.
The state.
State, because 10, 12 years ago, we used to use it to practice baseball.
So do we,
Big field. Yeah.
we want to just put no action on that one? Was that your suggestion? And then, or do y'all want to?
You can, say delay for the, 2023 application period, because this is a 2022 application. So,
What if we dedicated, parkland?
What, to build across the street?
The, 2023 application.
I wasn't gonna say nothing.
Yeah.
Which is probably that.
The utility building dedicated as parkland. I don't know about
So,
all that.
I have
More
a-
like a liability part.
I have a motion from Councilmember Jones to delay the grant application until the 2023 funding cycle. Is there a second?
So Gail Jones' motion, and Chris Will in second, all in favor? This is to delay it till next year so we can put something out together. Motion carries 4-0. Item 17, receive an update on Public Utility Commission administrative order for transmission operator compliance.
Thank you, Mayor. As you recall, the Public Utility Commission an administrative order to get into compliance with the transmission operator requirement. This is a multifaceted component to operating an electric utility. You have the designated transmission operator, the manual firm load shed requirement, and the under frequency load shed requirement. Basically, the designated transmission operator, that's the person that ERCOT calls in the event of something similar today, where they're out. So that is, ERCOT has directly shared system, they can hit and automatic switches, cut off and shed load. So the reason we haven't been in compliance, as we discussed previously, is it's extremely expensive. And we don't own the substation over there, so we can't have any access or make any adjustments to compliance period. We were given 6 months, 3 months last week, 29th, by Empower, the city. And so our strategy, remind DTO and under Garland transmission, are the ones that, and we'll treat basically whatever budget in terms of energy consumption, Weatherford will do it on our behalf. So their customers are the ones affected. Where we would pay, we're either paying in lights out or we're paying in dollars. So that's what the agreement that Schneider Engineering is working on with Garland and Weatherford. And the update on that, and I'll read this directly from Steve Moffitt. He's have their lights cut off because somebody else can't get into compliance. It's brokering this whole thing. They've outlined all hearings and so forth with the PUC, appropriation agreement to sign for same like so the next step, the really critical step, is drafting an agreement because we need to have that approved and submitted to PUC, I believe, by the end of September, if I'm not mistaken.
Is it a ridiculous fine?
$25,000 a day once we meet the end of our compliance period and we're not in compliance.
So that's from, Weatherford, doesn't have any more?
We're already on the hook for $25,000 period. That's all. Any draft agreement, or at the very least, the cost projections into our budget discussion for next year. I mean, that's going to be a critical component, and we made that very clear to Schneider Engineering that we need to have those figures just for that purpose alone. So they're on top of it. We trust those guys, and we've made it also very clear to Schneider Engineering that at the very least, either myself and or Mayor would like to make a physical appearance to both Garland, Light and Power and Weatherford to show how grateful we are. Basically putting their customers on the line for us, and we couldn't even bother to show up or have a line of communication with them, right? Because that's not what we're about. So we're going to make every effort to ensure that they know we appreciate these efforts, and we're doing everything on our end to also meet that compliance, not just now, but in the long term as well. So it's a partnership.
Can I ask you a question? Why does this group have to go so tough? $25,000 a day is not cheap. And why?
PUC, man.
You know, that's
They
what
got
you
their
do.
own, they got their own rule
And
books.
everybody has some unique problem. It's,
It was just, it became a very political issue after Winter Storm Uri, and the hammer needed to fall on someone, and unfortunately, that's with us.
I think the reason we come
2012, I believe.
2012, and here we are 10 years later, and we still haven't got anything resolved.
that makes sense.
City of Bartlett had an out. The citizens voted to sell the utility part of the electric utility. That sale was stopped, and then we never got it, and we still haven't got compliance. And so that's been, 3-4 years ago when the sale was stopped, and there's been no attempts then. And so they came down extremely hard on the city of Bartlett because of those reasons, because we did have an out, and we went against our citizens
They voted.
that voted to get rid of it. Council at that time went against the citizens, and here we are, this many years later, PUC has all that. I mean, believe me,
It was a big document.
it was a big document, and they came down extremely hard on the city of Bartlett. And we're not the only ones in this situation, but we're the only ones who have.
We're the guinea pig. We're the first one to go through this.
They've already fined us $25,000. We have 6 months to get in compliance from that levy date. The 6 months, which is right around the September mark, and to get in compliance are $25,000 daily fines. So we cannot afford the $25,000 fine, much less $25,000 daily fines. So that's why Joseph and I, we have weekly emails and texts and conversations with Mr. Snyder Engineering, Steve Moffitt. He's the vice president of Snyder. He's taken this on himself, and he is fighting extremely hard to get these deals to go through. And it's on eggshells. I mean, it really is. I mean, is there a backup plan?
Well,
Kind of.
well, our concern is that
Really.
the board and council for Garland, Light and Power, and Weatherford agreed to this. Who's to say that at some point down the road, be it another Winter Storm Uri or similar, where their customers had a significant impact, and they decide we're not going to do this anymore, and it becomes a political issue again, and then they end the agreement through whatever language or instrument is within the agreement.
Could be
So-
somebody new on board.
There's somebody new on the board. So how we're viewing this is, at the very least, a short-term compliance strategy, and we will also continue to work on back channels every year and over time to ensure we have backup options, or if not, reach a longer-term compliance strategy. And the best one that we could ever reach is where we are completely self-reliant. However, like we talked about, it's very there, but the closer we can get to it, the better off we'll be long-term. So we'll always keep that in mind. But at this point, this is the best strategy we have, and we're making significant progress on it. So we're happy to report that. No action needed on this item, by the way.
Just an update. Any other questions? Item 18. Discuss, review, and take any necessary action related to setting time and date for fiscal year 2023 budget and tax workshop. Dose.
Yes, sir. So, Mayor and Council, I handed out the fiscal year 2023 budget calendar. This is a draft document. What's on the agenda for tonight is to set a time and date for our budget workshop 2, budget and tax rate workshop 2. for later this month. If you look at the calendar here, I'll just kind of read it off for the folks in the crowd. On Wednesday, May 25th, we had our City Council Strategic Planning Workshop, which reviewed our mission, vision, and so forth. On Thursday, June 23rd, we had our first budget workshop where we looked at the county appraisal district, what that means, at least conceptually, with tax rates and the general fund and the fund structure of government. This month, budget workshop 2. Monday, July 25th, the Bell and Williamson County appraisal districts are required to send us what we call the certified taxable values, and that is what we will set our tax rate based on our budget and our tax rate off of those values. So I'm proposing that we have our budget workshop 2, and I would recommend that both of those start at 6 p.m. Here at City Hall. What we'll do during those workshops, if you recall last year, I believe we did one where we looked at the general fund revenue and expenditures on day 1, and day 2, we looked at the utility fund revenues and expenditures at that time. So this is going to be our big meat and potatoes budget meeting. So that's why I'm recommending 2 days and a little earlier start time.
Motion to, anything else, Justin?
No, sir.
So Philip Weaver's made a motion. Jesse Luna has seconded. All in favor? 4-0 passes.
20.
So that's July 28th.
6 p.m., right?
Yes, sir. No executive session tonight? Any future agenda items? No future agenda items?
We need to do something, I don't know who can be in charge of it, but the fire department over here. We don't have any EMS people in town. Anything ever happens, we gotta call out of town again.
Yeah, our fire department, we strictly, depend on
It's kind of
volunteers.
falling apart over.
I know they've been doing a lot of recruiting lately, and they've been pulling in some of the new recruits. Going a little better than it was to recruits, but yeah, they do need volunteers. They meet on a Thursday night, like, I think it's the third Thursday of the month or something like that. Maybe, but you're always welcome to go to a meeting and kind of express concerns, but I've talked to the chief, talked to the assistants, talked to multiple guys, strictly working on volunteers.
They don't ever use that alarm anymore?
Sorry,
That one?
test mode, which is every day, it is pretty quiet, but when it activates, like as an actual storm,
How do you know, Philip?
It's
Why is that burning?
I know,
it's pretty loud.
but I know we don't have any certified EMS and things.
I think they got David Kell, who's
He's
certified.
not really certified as a main EMS.
Dennis Close.
It used to be dim.
We can talk to the fire department, express our concerns.
Thought he was bad.
I got my house. Naval 2, run
No
IVs.
one went to the.
Any other,
Nope,
we can ask the fire department to come and give an update.
it's supposed to.
It wouldn't be nice.
A motion to adjourn.
Gail Jones, motion to adjourn. We'll call a meeting at 8:53. Thank you all, thank you citizens. Also got to the packets, this is real important, y'all see this about, public information act training. You have 90 days from the time you're sworn in to, complete these. We need to do these everybody wants to do these, it was just
But just,
just elected. We need to make sure we do those and get those to,
If everybody can do it, that way we have a renewed
oh, you
certificate.
didn't
for
run
everybody.
the, okay,
Yes, sir.
no, no problem.
Why don't you bring my laptop? I'd lock me out.
Oh, did it? Okay.
You guys got it.
Yes, sir. That is. You're just corrupted.
Right.
Yes,
Just
sir.
have
Go on.
corn on there.
The, you can go to that link, that webpage, and the YouTube video is embedded on the page. That's all it is. And once you watch the video, there's a link to do the certificate, basically. I got the map number.
Okay, all right.
Is that the Foothill guy?
Yeah, that's what we talked about last week. Remember he's going to, he's back.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. So just, he's a good dude.
Does he want to come work for the city?
If you talk to him real nice, yeah.
But
If you could
beg him.
So between you and I,
Mhm.
he's got the time to retire from Florida. He wants something that's not stressful. And if you made him a really good, if you made him a decent offer and roll out the red carpet. So he knows water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't need somebody in the hole per se. We just need someone
No,
to
he knows.
supervise.
And I think he can manage it. Much he knows about public works, but probably enough. So I completely vouch for it.
Matt Woodard?
Yeah, I think it's, it might be Woodward.
That's all right.
So he's in Pflugerville. His brother works there too.
Matt, regulatory manager?
No, I don't think so. I think he's the clean water guy.
Is this him?
Yeah.
He asked about that AMT.
Oh, it's not him?
Yeah, that's him. It's just, that's not a very current picture.
So he got, ooh, a double A.
Dude, I'm telling you,
Class A
man.
wastewater and
I'm
Class A
telling you,
water.
he don't mess around. Here, he's right here. This is him. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Come on.
But
Oh, that's perfect. I'll give him a call.
It'd be a good way to just kind of start that dialogue. So he's got to buy a house at home.
So even if he doesn't buy a house in Hollow, well, if he does, it'd be good because then he's just.
Well, he was going to buy it in the deal.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he was getting it for somebody else. This is an investment.
Oh, my God. Sir. Thank you.
Yeah. My father had a heart attack. My mother-in-law called us, he was all hysterical. He's not breathing, I think he did. I haul off blood over there. It took about 30 minutes to come in, Katie